Welcome back, my friends, ladies and gentlemen. Now we are in our render class, and let's talk about that. So we have our scene, we have our main camera in place, and probably that's the one image that we want to render. Now, I'm not pretty sure about that. I will be moving a couple of things, but for now, I'm just gonna, we are going to focus on that. So we can click in here, and this option allows me to bring the render settings, all right? Clicking here, render settings. So right now I am using the standard render, and you can use standard, physical, viewport renderer, and pro render. Now the standard render is really nice for a lot of different things, a lot of different purposes, so we're going to keep our focus on this one for now, because if I go to physical, you can see that I'm going to get a lot more properties that we will have to explain, and we don't have the time right now for that, because remember, we want to start working with Cinema 4D without any kind of complications. So I don't want you to go with a lot of different technical things that you're going to learn if you take a render class and you start using rendering terms and all of that. So for now, let's just stay in here and let's create a render. So with the standard, all the values by default like this, let's go and click on render, and you can see that we are getting our first render, right? And I can actually make that a little bit bigger. Let me just try to make this bigger. You can see that that's at 100%, all right? And we are getting this. Now let me just go again to my settings, and if I go to output, the first thing you're going to see is that we can change the size, the preset size. In this case, we're working with pixels, and we are using a preset of standard definition, standard high definition, which is at 1280 by 720. But I could change that and say film, I want to use HD TV, high definition, full, 1080, 24. So it's 1920 by 1080. And that's the kind of resolution that I'm going to get. Now, if I do that, I can, I'm going to have a lot more resolution. And then I'm just going to click play. And you're going to see that this guy is taking a lot longer to render. All right. So in this case, the other one took 3 seconds. This one is taking 5 seconds. And if you can see here, let me just go back this one and let me go to 100%. Can you see this jagged edge around the surfboard? And what else can we see that? In the V, for example, here you can see that jagged edge. Now I'm going to go to the bigger image, and you can see that now we are getting closer. We have a lot more definition, but still we are getting this jagged effect, and that's something that we don't want, because I mean, we have a lot more resolution, but still we're getting this kind of weird result. That is for something called, you can see here the T, the A, these curves are kind of the eye. It's not really nice, and that is because we have an option here called, where are you? Anti-aliasing, this one. And right now you're using the geometry option, but if we want to make something look better, we want to use the best options. Now I'm just going to do that for now, and let's try and see what we get. I'm going to press again just once in here, and you can see that we are starting to get our render one more time. The last one took 5 seconds. Now let's see this one, how long it's going to take. Now we have 10 seconds already, 11, 12 seconds, all right, double. But now you can see that we have this really nice render where we don't get that kind of jagged effect that we were getting in our previous render. And still we are at full high definition, and we're getting a really nice render with just these tweaks. Now I'm gonna go again to my options in here, and so that's about the preset, right? Now we could change the film aspect ratio, the resolution, if this is going to be for printing, or if it's going to be used for TV, you know, we're going to keep that in 72. We can change the frame rate. In this case, it's at 24, but we can change that and set it to 30 if we want to. But remember, we are changing this, or that changed because we were changing this parameter here where we said we want 1080 by 24. So again, it will switch it to 24 one more time. Now we have an option here called frame range. Now if I set that to all frames, what is going to happen is that it's going to render all the animation from frame 0 to frame 90. So I'm going to stay here for a while, and I'm going to get 90 frames rendered. And I don't want that right now, because I mean, I don't want it to stay here, but we could and then end up with an animation. And that's what you could do at the end if you want to. But for now, I'm just gonna go again and set that to current frame. That means that if I am at frame, let me go in here, if I am at frame 67, that's the one that I'm gonna render. If I am at frame 50, you can see that it changes automatically. That's the one that I'm gonna be rendering. 25, that's the one that I'm gonna be rendering. Frame 90, that's the one that I'm gonna be rendering. So keep that in mind. Frame range, current frame. If you want to render an animation, you gotta go to all frames, all right? Now another important one will be go to save. Now here you can save your image, and by default, if you have this applied, you're going to be saving everything in a temporary kind of thing. But if you want, you can go in here, click and look into your folder and specify a place where you want to save your images. Give it a name and everything is going to be saved on that specific region. Now another thing, the format. If you want to use PNG, you can use that one. GPGA, you can use this one. You can use OpenEXR. And you can use this one. In this case, we're using TIFF. Don't have a problem with that, or we can use Photoshop files. And that's it all depends of what your pipeline is going to be and how you want to deal with things inside Cinema 4D or outside Cinema 4D. Now we can, if we want to send transparency, we could send an alpha channel. Let's say that you only want these objects, the actual surf or everything, but the sky, for example. So you want transparency in the sky because you want to take that into Photoshop and put a real picture of the sky. So you could use transparency and make the sky not make the sky transparent, and that will help with the problem. So that's one of the things. Now we have a lot of options, compositing, and we can send that to After Effects, Nuke, Motion Fusion. There's a lot of different kind of things that we can do, like I said, with rendering. But for now, we have to keep things a little bit simple. Multipath allows us to send information. In this case, we can separate the lights, how we want to deal with them, and then we can start manipulating them outside of this program once in compositing. Anti-aliasing, which is the one that we already saw. We have these options where you can say, okay, I want to render transparency, reflection, shadows, blurriness. All of these can be manipulated by this region. Now, another option here, important, will be the object glow, because remember, we have the sun, and if I remove that, I'm going to change my output for now. I'm going to send that set it back to 720. Okay, just like that, so that we don't get a really high I don't want you to wait for a long time every time we render. So again, I'm just gonna click and render so you can see, and we're not gonna get that jagged thing around here because we already have a really nice kind of anti-aliasing. Now can you see the sun? The sun is not bright anymore. It's not emitting that effect that we had before. If you could take a look, when we added our sun, okay, it's not there. So now let me go to this sun effect, and you can see that we are using this glow effect, and in here I don't have this glow effect. And let me just render again, and I didn't notice that we were not getting that effect. No, it's gone. We are not getting that effect. And let me just try to see what is happening here. Let me increase the value of this just to see if we are getting something from it. There is the sun, and no, we are not getting anything. And I don't want to think that it's because of the actual render or the animation. No, I don't think so. Let me just bring another of our saved projects. I'm gonna go here, and I can go to my recent files, and I'm just gonna bring, I think in this one we already have that. Yes, the sun is in here. Let me just get another render from here, and there we go. We have our effect going on, and that's what I was talking about. And maybe, like I said, let me just check in here. Everything is set to the same kind of thing that we had. Well, if I remove this option, object glow, we hit render again, that's what is going to happen. So we don't have the glowing effect, and that's what I wanted to show you. Now the thing here is that I'm going to jump to the scene. I'm going to go to Window, and then I'm going to jump to 12, which is the version with all of that. And for some reason, we are not getting. Just going to set that like that. We are not getting our object glow, but I will maybe because of the animation. I don't know. It's probably letting behind that region or something that I moved in here and I didn't notice. But the thing is that's why we use the object glow. So if you don't see that happening, you have to make sure that you are activating that in here and activating this on this other section. And let me just I am intrigued about this. And you know what, we can actually see something right away in here. I'm going to take for example this red object, and I'm going to make it glow, and it's going to have the same kind of glow effect. I'm going to increase the radius, and let's just see if we get some glowing effect on this guy. And yes, can you see that? Probably we are getting it, but because of the animation and all that, is not showing us that effect on the actual render. But you can see how the red is now giving us this kind of thing, and so that's because we are activating the glow effect. So that's a lot better. I wanted you to know what's going on. So there you go. Now we can add or remove this effect, and also another thing that we can do is increase the effects that we can use. So for example, I can set ambient occlusion or glow, hair, lens distortion, lens effects, position pass, a lot of different things that we can start and bring into our compositions. Now another thing that I want to show you is that we have this physical render where everything is a little bit more complex. Now when you go like that, you're gonna get a lot of different options that where is here in physical, you're gonna get a lot more options, like for example depth of field, motion blur, and you're going to be dealing with a lot of different parameters that are going to help you to make your renders look a lot nicer. Now what I want you to see is that if I take, let's say for example here, glow, and we can see it, use glow ID for an object, we can use these values for this effect, but I mean, let me just use ambient occlusion for that. I'm just going to bring some effects in here. So if I render now this with physical render, you're going to see that this thing is going to take a little bit longer to render because we are using another type of render, and it's a little bit, I mean, if you can see here the difference, well, now you can see the glowing effect going everywhere, and that's really cool. But take a look at this one. So the shadows, for example, and look at underneath here where the bottom of the table is. Can you see these kind of nice shadows underneath? For example, here the actual sphere, the ball. You can see this shadowing. That's because of the ambient occlusion that we are using here. I'm just gonna remove the glow, and I'm gonna hit play again. And you can see that the other one took 12 seconds. Before, with the regular one, we were at 7 seconds. This one is going to take a little bit longer than 7, but a little bit less than 12, so 11. And now you can see that the shadows, again, the ambient occlusion is giving us this. You can see here the shadows in the back of this guy, of the letter underneath this guy here, something that you can see here, all right? Because that's what this effect is doing, in this case our ambient occlusion effect. Now in here we can change a lot of values here. We can give it a lot more resolution, we can give it a lot more contrast, we could reduce how we want to apply this, increase the length of the rays, increase the dispersion, accuracy, and a lot of different things. So what I mean is that you have the opportunity to use a lot of different effects, and you have the opportunity to use different renders. Now if I remove the actual effects from here and I show you I want to show you what's going to happen with this render. I'm going to go here, hit play. You're going to get this nice render at 100%. All right. And I want to show you the difference between this and just the standard. All right. Let's just click again, render. So you have to make sure that when you use the physical render, you really need it, because in this case you can see that the standard render took 7 seconds, and then the physical render took 9 seconds, excuse me. And now you can kind of see a little subtle difference because of the sun. Now the sun is really far away, and now I can see actually the glowing happening. If I go to the standard render, I don't see it, but if I go to the physical render, I can kind of see it. And that is because, you know, the actual how far away is the sun, the animation, and all these kind of things that we were talking about before. But if you can see that, like, really doesn't make any kind of a big difference. So just make sure that when you use physical, it's because you really need it. You are going to be using ambient occlusion, you're going to be using depth of field, a lot of different cool things that, you know, are going to make your renders a lot more realistic. But if you don't need it, if you're not going to use that, just stay away from there, because otherwise you're going to take, your renders are going to take a lot longer to render. Now, for now, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. We covered a lot of different things inside Cinema 4D. We ended up with this scene with creating a lot of different type of objects, different kind of effects. We did a little bit of modeling, we did a little bit of animation, we did rendering, we applied materials, you know a little bit about UVs, and a lot of information now. So I think that you are ready to start working with your projects without any kind of problem. And I encourage you to keep working and keep learning about Cinema 4D. Now, this is just an introduction, but what we do is, in my case, I really like people to work and know a lot about the programs that they are using, and to know a lot more about the techniques that they can use in order to become more efficient. So if you want to keep working with us, you want to keep learning from us, just stay in touch, and I will see you later. Thank you very much. Bye bye for now. Take care.